to be your MC for the evening. I also happen to be your Secretary of State, and we are still here in New Mexico counting every vote, just like they are across the country. But I was asked to, and I'm really pleased to be here with this group tonight as we stand in solidarity with others around the country, making sure that every single vote in this election gets counted, and that the person who actually won the presidential election is going to be the person who takes office this January. I am proud to tell you that New Mexico broke so many records for voting in Tuesday's election. Far more people voted in New Mexico than had ever voted before by about 100,000. We broke our record from 2008 when Barack Obama was elected president. We surpassed that. We had more absentee ballots cast than ever before. We had more early votes cast than ever before. We should be really proud of that as a state. And my staff and I worked tremendously hard over the past 2 years to make sure that every eligible citizen had not only the right, but the opportunity to vote in this election, especially in light of the challenging conditions of the pandemic, that every legitimate vote was counted, and that no one has prematurely declared victory in New Mexico, which, by the way, are the same three principles on which Count Every Vote New Mexico was established. Count Every Vote New Mexico is a nonviolent, nonpartisan coalition of local organizations working to support the values and principles of our democracy, which rely on our tradition of free and fair elections. I want to thank the Count Every Vote New Mexico Committee and their national partner coalition, Protect the Results, for helping us get out the vote in New Mexico and for bringing us together tonight to both celebrate that success and to set our sights on where we need to go from here. If you want to be involved in Count Every Vote's activities and scheduled events, copy down this information. I believe it's on the screen, but of course I can't tell because I'm looking at notes now. Nope, not on the screen. Okay, we will have it posted for you at some point, and you will receive texts about upcoming actions. So if you
now it's on the screen, Maggie.
Okay, great, wonderful. So they're going to text you about upcoming actions, and who knows, we may even be able to celebrate a president-elect by tonight. Thank you everyone for phone banking, text banking, for literature drops, and all the other help you did getting out the vote here in New Mexico. And I know this has been a nerve-wracking few days. We've been waiting for the votes to be counted as President Trump has been casting aspersions on our free and fair electoral process. The COVID-19 pandemic grows increasingly worse throughout the country. Filings for unemployment offer little sign that the US economic recovery is gaining traction, and a relief bill seems stalled until perhaps next year. But there is light on the horizon, especially as we allow the election process to proceed as it should, and more vote counts are announced. So we'd like to quickly check in with all of you who've joined us tonight. Give us one word that best describes how you're feeling right now. And is that going to go into a word cloud? Am I right?
Yes.
Turner? All right.
It's coming up now. Okay, there you go.
So one word, how you're feeling. And again, if you go to this website that you see at the top of the screen, or text Indivisible 2028, is that right? Mm-hmm. Indivisible 2028 to 22333, text your word. I'm gonna do that myself while we're sort of waiting for this word cloud to generate, because I think that's really cool. 333. And then Indivisible 2028. And then I got a message back saying that I've joined, and so then you can text your message. Yay, nice words. Raunchy. Oh, I identify with tired. Determined, yes. And definitely anxious too, and nervous. Riveted, like Mayor Keller constantly refreshing his Nevada results screen. Wow. This is really breathing. Yes, good. I'm glad everyone is breathing. We have to do that. Well, this is really cool. Relieved, yep. Relieved, tired, nervous, all the things, right? I texted a friend of mine. Someone was asking me on Wednesday how I felt, and I said, I think I've literally felt all the feelings that are possible today. And I think this word cloud demonstrates that too. We're feeling all these feelings: joyness, sad, tired, relieved, anxious, hopeful. So it's a hard time. We haven't been in a place like this in a long time in this country, and hopefully after this election we won't have to again for a long time. Let's see. I am going to move on because we are honored to have some very notable speakers with us this evening. Our first speaker is Ezra Levin, and he's coming to us via video. Ezra is the co-founder and co-executive director of Indivisible, and he wanted to share just a few words on the importance of protecting the results of this election.
And that is the technical difficulty that we were not able to rectify.
Oh, we're not going to have Ezra's video. I'm so sorry.
I think I can do it. Let's see if I can do it.
Okay, let's see if we can do it.
My screen here. Gonna give it a shot here. Yeah, all right. Come back to Zoom. Zoom and
make sure to click share your audio.
Yeah, I sort of need to expand my Zoom at this point. I need to expand so many things in my life at this point. I have to tell you. So I think I got it coming. All right. Share screen. Oh, well, the host disabled the participant screen sharing. Don't know what that's about. So we will try to get Ezra later on.
Okay. We'll stand by for Ezra.
And also, I've just received a note from Joseph Cotton that he is unable to make it. So.
Oh no. Well, that's okay. We are just going to move forward. We do have a few speakers, and so our next speaker is actually somebody who I am very blessed to be able to work with, and has been doing fabulous work in our Native communities around the state, comes from a lineage of folks who have been working very hard in our Native communities for a very long time to help make sure our Native voices are heard in our elections. And so with no further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Atza Chavez, who is the executive director of the NAVA education program. Welcome, Atza.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. I have a whole bunch of stuff going on in my house, so I'm trying to find the quietest spot here to be able to join you folks today. But I just wanted to say that and share the sentiments of our Secretary of State, Maggie Toulouse Oliver. We are so happy with the turnouts that we saw in the Native communities across the state. Despite being so heavily affected by the coronavirus pandemic, we were able to advocate on multiple levels to make sure that tribal communities were able to maintain their tribal polling locations and that they were able to vote safely. We had a lot of partnerships across the state to be able to provide PPE in addition to what the Secretary of State's office provided for these polling locations. In particular, we were able to get face shields that help make certain that the volunteers and the poll workers in these tribal communities were able to help facilitate a safe vote. In addition to a number of other organizations indigenously led, we were able to provide a lot of voter kits to voters that contained a mask and hand sanitizer and a black ink pen so that folks could, again, vote safely. We had an ambassador program and folks that we helped during election day. So we made as much effort as we could collectively to really get out the vote. And one of the partnerships that we were really inspired by was the work with the Native American Voter Task Force. We were able to partner and really get out a lot of messaging and radio spots in tribal languages that really did help to encourage folks to go out and vote. We were able to also provide geofencing messaging for those communities that had some last minute changes in polling locations or hours that their polling locations were open. And it was really inspiring to just work with so many of the community members who just put so much heart and effort into making sure that they got as many folks registered and as many folks to request their absentee ballots or provide the support for our elderly and disabled community members to be able to utilize those early voting centers, and then provide the support again during election day. So it really was the work of a lot of partnerships across the state that enabled so many of our communities to be able to work together and have a successful election. We are inspired by the numbers that are coming through, because one of the messagings that we tried to make sure that was out there was the difference in administration and how that would affect a lot of the policies for Native Americans across the state. And we're so fortunate that we have such a great governor who cares about our health and cares about the authenticity of counting the vote, along with folks like Maggie at the Secretary of State's office. We believe in the ability to have a voice through democracy, and upholding those particular tenets were so important, and we appreciate all the leadership like Mayor Keller, who's always kind of advocated for the right to vote and advocated for the diversity in our state. And I think that as Indigenous folks in this state, we make up close to 10% of our population, and we have 5 places in which we have more than 50% in terms of Native American population. And so being able to advocate for these communities, having things like SB4 that give us the opportunity to continue to vote, having the emergency provisional ballots that were available for communities to still quarantine and be able to cast a vote. All of these key things that really came down to the end gate, really, as we were trying to get out the vote. All of these things were key into making sure that we were able to advocate for every single person out there to cast a vote. And we're just so grateful and so happy to be a part of the progressiveness that is the state of New Mexico, and the ability for us to work together, no matter our tribe or creed or color or sexual orientation. We just seem to come together over our love of red and green chili and love of each other as neighbors. So we at NAVA Education Project are so happy to partner and be a part of such a great state. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Atsa, and thank you for all your amazing work that you're doing in our Native communities. And I personally look very much forward to continuing to work with you as we continue to try to grow those opportunities in our Native communities. I have a giggle box 11-year-old in the other room laughing, if you can hear that in the background. Next is a person who literally needs no introduction, but who I'm going to introduce anyway as a dear friend and colleague, and somebody who's probably got the hardest job in New Mexico, I would imagine, and that is our Albuquerque Mayor, Tim Keller.
Well, thank you so much, and just wonderful words, Atsa. Thank you for all the work in NAVA that you guys have done. Time in, that organization's been around for, I know, a long time, and continues to do better each year or each cycle. And so just congratulations. I think a lot of the credit for the good things that we're seeing both here and in New Mexico is really a credit to the advocates and to folks who've dedicated their lives for making every vote count, and enabling folks from all walks of life and all backgrounds to be able to exercise that right. So, and I want to, I think, just begin with some some well-deserved shout outs. Our Secretary of State humbly emceeing the ceremony, once again has just delivered for New Mexico. And, I've got to tell you, I'll talk a little bit about Bernalillo County, just because that's where I'm at, and our county clerk too, Linda Stover. When you have to work through all of these boring things that are really important ahead of time and then practice them and make sure they go right, it's extremely hard. And it's a story that's rarely told. And I do just want to highlight basics like all the things that we see happening in other states that are frustrating us, and why I'm like screaming at Pennsylvania, right? That doesn't happen here in New Mexico. And it is because, and I will say primarily because of Maggie Toulouse Oliver, because she started doing this at Bernalillo County. And then now Linda has picked up on that tradition, but now Maggie, of course, is doing this statewide. And so, look, we've got paper ballots. I remember that was one of the first things I did I voted on in the legislature, because there's an audit trail and we can sort of control them. And we were way ahead of the curve on paper ballots in the country. And oddly, but sort of behind the curve, because like originally it was paper ballots, but we made that change back to paper. I think someone will probably remember 2008 or something like that. Maybe it was 2006. And there began a lot of these reforms, and even these little things like, so who is allowed in a polling place, one judge from each party, and who is in charge at a polling place. And, we now know it's sort of that polling place judge. And this was very important, right, for voter intimidation. So when you get these situations, who is making that decision? And then also, have they been trained? And that's where, look, everyone from, again, our county clerk, Stover, to Maggie, and also some credit to our district attorney, did some great training on voter intimidation that I had our police department took. And so, I got to say, I'm just so proud to be a New Mexican when it comes to voting, because, there's always small issues, but look, we rarely get to say we're really better than other states, like in terms of statistics. In voting, we are so much better. Like, I'm so glad to live here. And it's a credit to the leadership of those two women. And of course, nothing happens smoothly without the woman at the top, our governor, who I know we're going to hear from briefly. But I do want to mention, in the time of COVID, right, without her leadership, without Governor Grisham's leadership, we would have had all this, can you wear a mask? Can you not? And, they planned all of this out. The Department of Health, the Secretary of State, the county clerk. We had answers in our office when you called the mayor's office, which I know thousands of you do each day. We had answers. Someone's not wearing a mask. Who do I call? Someone's doing this. Who do I call? Where do I go? What are the changes? We had all of that ready for early voting. We had all of it ready for election day because of all of that hard work that all three of the folks that I've mentioned have put in. And so I will say here, we had, just for what it's worth, we had some minor issues with, people being political. I think there were 8 or 6. There was an early scare that we thought was going to be some intimidation action. It turned out not to be. But I do appreciate APD did respond to those, and they were handled and de-escalated and ended. So, I think you can't prevent everything. It really, the mark is what happens when there is a situation, and that it doesn't boil over and translate into all of these things. And so fortunately in Albuquerque, I hate to knock on wood, because it's like, I never want to jinx anything, but I think we're done. And I think we had no major issues. So we really worked together as one community to do that. So I would just share a couple of thoughts, having been someone born and raised here, and also now, it still is, I'm getting old fast. My hair is turning gray, and this job is a lot of work. But I also remember back when I was in the legislature and things like this, and there are some amazing victories too for us to celebrate. So look, we have obviously a all female, all of color delegation going to Congress for the first time ever. That is awesome. And we have a situation with our first Black senator being elected, state senator, Harold Pope. And, it's hard to believe that he's the first one, actually, but it's true. And finally, and so that's outstanding. There's 4 LGBTQ now folks in the legislature. That also, we had seen some gains, but we basically doubled that count. And we have a female majority in the state house for the first time ever, which is absolutely amazing. So good to see. And, of course, we have a return to a Hispanic U.S. Senator, which, of course, being New Mexico, it's one of those like, why didn't we have Hispanic? So, I think we're readjusting our leadership so that it reflects our population. And it's a great thing to see, because these were actually huge strides that I think a lot of us thought would have been made 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago. And I think in many ways, there were a lot of ceilings broken. And so, of course, always more to do, but I think real progress. So I would just end by saying, thank you to everyone who did make all of that happen, whether it was the advocates behind those candidates who ran, the leadership that I spoke of in the electoral process and keeping us safe during COVID. And also, now, I mean, let's hope, obviously, like Biden's going to be our president, but we also now have to do the work, right? And this is something like policies matter. So now we got to have all these people we just elected deliver, right? And we've got to support them and help them do that. And, we also know that there are, right? The sad thing is there are massive divisions in our country that are very deep. And in many ways, we probably should not be surprised by any of that. But I know a lot of us thought there would be a much bigger, sort of blue wave. And I think it's a reminder that our country has a long way to go. But I am, again, grateful, because I think as challenged as New Mexico and as Albuquerque is, I mean, we've got our issues, but I think we are a better place than the rest of the country. And I'm proud of that. And I'm grateful to live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Maggie.
Thank you, Mayor Keller. You just hit it all spot on. I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said. And I do think there are a lot of wonderful victories to celebrate here in New Mexico this year, victories across the nation, potential victories on the verge of happening, and at the same time, being really aware of and cognizant of the fact of where we are as a nation and as a community and as a state is really important. We do have more work to do. So thank you very much for that. Really appreciate those remarks. Senator Udall had hoped to be here this evening, but something came up at the last minute. That is how it goes for these folks that represent us in Washington. So I do just want to read a statement on his behalf really quickly. And he says, "Let me be clear. In a democracy, the election is not over until every vote has been counted, no matter what misinformation the president spews or lawsuits he files as he desperately tries to cling to power. Furthermore, despite the president's threats, if we simply stopped counting the ballots right now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would be the winners. We must count every vote in every state, regardless of who is ahead or behind. Donald Trump doesn't get to pick whose votes count. This is the foundation of our democracy, and we must let it work." And with that, I think, Senator Udall nailed it right on the head as well. That is why we are going to continue to support the counting of every single vote across this country.
And Maggie, let's not forget the governor.
I was just about to ask if we have the governor on. Wonderful. Yes. So with no further ado, frankly, one of the best people I've ever had the privilege of working with in my professional life. And again, somebody who needs no introduction. Welcome, Madam Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham.
Hey, Secretary of State, thank you very much for that kind introduction. And it's an all-star appearance or set of appearances, because the folks who are logged into this peaceful rally to really make sure that we demonstrate in this safe, COVID-safe virtual way that counting every vote, embracing and loving and never taking for granted our democracy is a very valuable exercise. And I do think, like the mayor said, is that it builds us up and that we do have a lot to be proud of and thankful for. And quite frankly, this is a state who has long worked at refining our election code, about refining and investing in advocacy groups to do a better job at hard to reach voters and communities. This whole team right here worked diligently during the special session to make sure that we had a response for COVID, make sure that we had provisional ballots and that we increased our messaging for absentee ballots. And it really worked. We minimized to the highest degree possible and demonstrated that people preferred a safer way to exercise their right in this national and statewide election by sending in their absentee ballots. And very little, the Secretary of State might know more, but ballots that were mailed in got in. Our ability to count when we count all makes a meaningful difference. And I want to reiterate, even though you already heard it, that what Mayor Keller said about being COVID safe, I'd love to take total credit for that. We set the standards, we set the rules, we let you know that we would never minimize anybody's right to vote, have our polling sites open. But we have to really talk about what you need in order to vote successfully, how much space is really required, how that's all going to work. And so you can have an epidemiologist, one of our MDs, and they were available to really talk about what we do about masks and social distancing and sanitation and hand sanitizer and the like. But if we don't coordinate that effectively and we don't lean into the experts for votes and voter protection in elections, we would get it wrong. So it's really a recognition that we were all working on this together, and we were able to do it successfully because of you, right? That we have all of these organizations that are nonpartisan, that are very clear about this democracy, that are very clear about making sure that every single vote matters. And that if we build on that, there is no single effort, including the effort currently in the White House, that can destroy or diminish in any real way the strength of this democracy. And New Mexico proved that, and actually has, over and over and over again. And I too am very proud of that fact and feel very good. And we had historic turnout. And I think it's a great place to continue to do election reforms that enhance everyone's ability to cast their vote. And to make sure that we're increasing participation, particularly for young people who did in fact here and across the nation, and young people of color who were not only just motivated to engage, right, saw that with incredible integrity to the system. And while I think for a first-time voter, these delays can be confusing, for all of us who know that we will keep counting until every vote that was made in time, on time, and through all of the state systems that have been created legally and successfully, we will keep counting because our voices absolutely matter. And I want to just say one more thing, which is while we always have election protection questions and issues, and I don't know that we've had very many conflicts, and this is not just this election, but where someone unintentionally or intentionally wears a political garment and tries to engage in political activity where they're not allowed to, so that you can vote without being intimidated and unfettered, and that we don't do that unfairly once we get to our voting booth. That's really important. We had a couple of issues, but they were really diminished so quickly. And I think it speaks to New Mexico's ability to move forward, to heal. We don't all agree on every single issue in the state. And that's a good thing, right? That positive, productive discourse and working through our problems and dealing with our challenges is, frankly, a progressive strategy forward. And I think we demonstrated that we didn't have long lines and that we didn't have folks, who were being unkind to each other, and that we didn't have the kind of wide scale intimidation by any stretch of the imagination. And that folks, I think, largely in New Mexico are settling in, that we will have a decision, a projection, where we can get closer to that declaration and having all of the votes then officially, right, identified. We are close. And I think that that is necessary for this country to start to heal some of that divide. But I also want to end with this. This virtual rally is critical because we cannot stand for anyone in any context, in any position of power or influence, particularly directly out of the White House, to cast any doubt on the power of this democracy, or to cast any doubt in order to prevent an outcome by alleging unfounded and already discredited allegations about this democracy, about this election, and about anything that's going on in any state. And I believe that after this, it will be the last time. I know that the Secretary of State said, these kinds of significant issues in our country can be a bit cyclical. It's been 100 years since we've had a pandemic. I hope it's at least 100 years until we ever have to think about another one or another kind of controversy around this democracy. But what you're doing today, standing up against all of that nonsense and standing up for what makes this nation uniquely strong and uniquely effective, is that every vote counts. So thank you for allowing me to join, for letting me share in our pride and our success, and to continue to march forward peacefully and productively in this nation to assure that our democracy will be intact. Thank you, Secretary of State, and thanks to everyone on this call.
Thank you, Madam Governor. Again, couldn't agree more with everything that you just said. And I know that I, for one, am grateful for your leadership on many fronts, particularly in these pandemic times. But again, I just want to reiterate what a wonderful partner you have been to those of us who run elections here in New Mexico, and the priority that you have made safe, secure, accurate, fair elections. We often sort of feel like the redheaded stepchildren, right? Those of us who run elections, oh, you need to do all these things, but we're not going to make sure you have the funding, or we're not going to make sure you have a statutory, framework that can help you. But you have been supportive of us every step of the way. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful. So thank you, Governor. So, as we reflect on the inspirational words of our amazing speakers, we want to pause for a minute and remember who is in charge here. Whose country is this really? And I think we all know that this country belongs to us, the citizens of the United States. So we should have
a video coming up.
Yep.
How we doing there?
Right.
Hey, Kimberly saves our lives again. A little more technical difficulty. You almost had it, Kimberly. It's the one that says, I've seen my people. That's it. Oh, it keeps going away.
I'm going to play from your link. That's better.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. I've roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts. And all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. When the sun came shining and I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling, and the fog was lifting, a voice was chanting. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on the sign it said no trespassing. But on the other side, it didn't say nothing. That side was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. In the shadow of the steeple, I saw my people. By the relief office, I've seen my people. As they stood there hungry, I stood there asking, is this land made for you and me? Nobody living can ever stop me as I go walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can ever make me turn back. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.
That was lovely. And okay, Count Every Vote New Mexico asked me to clarify they do not condone or promote trespassing. Just saying. Next, coming up on your screen are some ways to use your social media with specific hashtags that will help our efforts promote our true democratic values. So get your phones out and capture this information so that you can use it after the rally. Get a hashtag or two out on the social media world while attending this rally. And I know we are going to see this here in just a moment, I think. The joy of technical fun keeps continuing.
I clearly am not going to get a job as a Zoom expert. That's clearly not in my wheelhouse.
Well, it's not in mine either, so. So yeah, get your phone out. Action alerts from Count Every Vote.
And then can we need the other hashtags too?
There we go. And if you hold your phone up, you can scan that little QR code. Great. So that is a great segue into talking about what comes next. After all the votes are counted, or even a little bit before every vote is counted, there is still lots of work to be done. We know that unfortunately lawsuits will likely continue to be filed on the results, and those will have to work their way through the courts. And beyond the court cases, though, there will probably be other efforts to undermine that legitimate vote that will be well covered in the press and social media. Let's be aware that much of the publicity surrounding those efforts is meant to serve as a distraction to keep us from being focused on how we can continue to use our power as citizens to protest and make our voices heard on things that may be happening in the background, like further efforts to overturn regulations and decimate our federal agencies with oversight responsibilities, a petulant refusal to sign the fiscal year 2021 federal budget. The current continuing resolution expires on December 11th, and potentially forcing us into another government shutdown at a time of health and economic crisis. COVID-19 actions that do not allow for the best available science to guide the government response. Trying to get more conservative, or more importantly, unqualified federal judge appointments pushed through the Senate, right? These are things that are going to continue while we are working our way through the rest of this election process. So we must keep working to stop these and similar actions. So over the next 3 months, we want everyone to stay vigilant and don't spend too much of your energy on the distractions meant to undermine our focus. Continue to hold your elected officials' feet to the fire. Call, email, and do whatever you can to make sure your voice is heard. Use those social media hashtags to support our shared commitment, and mobilize when necessary, but certainly not in ways that threaten your health or safety. And I know that groups like Count Every Vote are going to continue to do these kinds of actions in a COVID-safe environment. But if you feel safe to get out there and to make your voice heard, by all means, please do that. As you act on our goals and values, always remember that we are committed to nonviolent strategy for social and political change. We want to win, and rigorous study of social movements has shown that nonviolent civil resistance is more effective than violence at resisting oppression and making change. Our commitment to a strategy of nonviolent action is a strategic choice connected to what we believe is most effective in defending and preserving our democracy. We are also committed to healing the deep divisions among our people. We must be prepared to take an active role in bringing together all Americans, even those we disagree with. Our democracy thrives when we can disagree civilly and nonviolently and still find ways to work together. And frankly, that's been one of the biggest challenges that we have experienced as a nation over the last 4 years. This has been a momentous and challenging election, but because millions of people cast their ballots for COVID relief, democracy reform, racial justice, the climate, and so much more, Joe Biden is ahead. And as votes are counted, the momentum continues to build. Right now, the process is working to make sure that no matter what any politician says and does, the will of the people is going to prevail. An important caveat, however, this victory was made possible by incredible local organizing this year. So thanks once again to Count Every Vote New Mexico Coalition, to the member organizations that help make this election demonstrate and revive democracy in the United States. And one more time, let me mention that if you want to be involved in Count Every Vote's activities and scheduled events, copy down the information on the screen. I think there should, well, maybe we can get it back up again real quick.
Kimberly, if we can put up the chili text slide.
this is the way to sign up to get more information about upcoming actions. And we saw that slide earlier. It was the first one. It said text Chile to a phone number. There we go. 5510824. If you go ahead and shoot that text, the word Chile, to that number, you will get further updates on the actions and events to come. So before we close, we want to ask you one more time to describe in one word how you are feeling right now. And again, the way to do that, as we're going to get the information back up on the screen, is to send a text. If you haven't already, send the words Indivisible 2028 to the number 22333. And yeah, how are you feeling? Send those texts so we can see what the word cloud.
We want to see if your feelings have changed after listening to these amazing speakers.
Figured that was the point. And now we're going to see what you all are saying. Yeah, we're still in that combo of hopeful and anxious, aren't we? Determined. Yes. Apprehensive. Relieved. Grateful. Gosh, gratitude is so important in this time. Prayerful. Thankful. These are the feelings that we need to try and carry with us into the coming days, as we all navigate these difficult in-between times. And obviously there's a lot to be hopeful about, obviously a lot to look forward to potentially, but we're here because we want every vote counted. And we all know that unless and until every vote is counted, we are still going to be, there is going to be that feeling of unresolvedness, right? And so we have to somehow carry both of those feelings at the same time, all of these feelings at the same time with us over the course of the next few days and weeks. So I just want to close this evening by thanking you all for joining us tonight at the Count Every Vote New Mexico rally. As we go forward with a great commitment and great optimism, we hope you will take a few minutes to watch our last upcoming video and to appreciate how lucky we are to be Americans.
Before we do that, we really want to give our great thanks to Secretary of State Maggie Toulouse Oliver, who has done a fabulous job, and I must say on pretty short notice, for us this evening, emceeing this event, and for all her work in really helping us count every vote in New Mexico and make sure that we really are doing that. Also, we did put up the website, the HTTPS websites for Count Every Vote New Mexico. We have more hashtags and lots of things there. So you can either, if you took a screenshot of that, that would be great. We'll put it up after this last video again so that people can get it. But we, again, thank you so much, Maggie. And if people actually could do their emotions, they would all be clapping. I just know it. So,
well, thank you all. It was a pleasure to be with everyone tonight.
Thanks. And Kimberly, I think we're ready for the last song video.
Oh, beautiful. spacious skies, for amber waves of grain,
for purple mountains, majesties above thy fruited plain. America, America, God shed much grace on thee. So spread the love sent from above, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful thy immigrants who hail from every land.
their hope and heart and diligence, like gifts from God's own hand.
America, America,
Thy grace,
thy grace shall yet remain
to
greet the poor
who
reach this shore with open arms again.
Oh, beautiful, oh, Mother Earth, all nestle at your breast.
Just as we sing with love and pride, so all nations are blessed. Yeah, America, America, alone cannot abide. No, God give thee pause to mend thy flaws with truth, thy only guide. Oh, beautiful, thou working folk built cities, till thy soil. Proud Africans in bloody chains, the wealth built from
Their
their toil. Yes, Lord. America, America, God shed much grace on thee. Yes. So spread the love sent from above,
from sea to
to shining sea.
Bring
sisterhood,
bring
brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, yes.
So for those who are still on, Kimberly, if you could put up the slide with the Count Every Vote New Mexico website. People take some pictures of that, and there will be other hashtags and resources posted on that website in a folder called Resources. And we thank you all for joining us tonight. I don't know what happened to our 12,000 people, but I'm sure that Mayor Keller is right. They're all probably glued in front of the TV right now, waiting to see if we're going to get anything in from Pennsylvania or Arizona. So. Oh, and I wish I should have said this earlier. On behalf of Count Every Vote New Mexico, we want to thank so much Kimberly Becker, who has been here with us to help us run this messed up Zoom that I messed up, and has saved me really from Indivisible National. So thank you so much, Kimberly.